Yeah, you're going to pay attention to that, and I'm going to laugh when you fall.
In the mud, in the water. We're getting moss. We're looking for moss. We're looking for moss. Alrighty. Welcome. If you're new here, welcome back. If you're not, it's Minnie. And I had a request to talk about what I do with all the moss. If you caught my Instagram video, someone requested I talk about what I do with all the moss that we collected on our walk. So I'm doing an intro while I'm going to be doing a task with the moss that we collected and talking about the kinds of moss that we collected throughout this video. So I hope that it's something you guys are interested in. And if you are, do a girl a favor and leave a like and comment and let me know. Because I do all kinds of weird things, weird girl things. And, sometimes people find that interesting. So, over the Easter weekend, we took a little walk and gathered up a whole bunch of moss. And I have it here in a bin with me. And some of the kinds of moss that I got collected for specific reasons is this kind. This is sphagnum moss or sphagnum moss. It's that really fluffy, carpety stuff. Now, a lot of houseplant collectors will purchase this, and I've purchased it in the past. And when you do, you can buy it and it's just dehydrated. But buying it is not the greatest for the environment, of course, because you're buying it from large scale operations that kind of destroy the environment while they're collecting it. And I'm a little bit more mindful when I collect this. This is alive right now. It's living. And sometimes when you buy it, you receive it, and when you rehydrate it by soaking it in water, it will come back to life. And then sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's treated or it's not living once you get it. Some of the places it comes from, the best place that you can get it from to rehydrate it and have it live is New Zealand. But the ecosystem in New Zealand is very fragile, and I don't like to buy it from there. So on our property, we have lots of sphagnum moss, and so we collected some of that. I collected some lichens. So this is a lichen. We call it moose antler lichen. I can't remember the Latin name for it, but you can find this sometimes when it's dead, it will be gray, or when it's alive, it turns green. And you can always tell after the rain because it's nice and green. So I collected some of that. I collected some sheet moss, and that kind of looks like this. Hope you can see that. It grows in a carpet-like structure on logs or on rocks, and this one came from rocks. I don't think I have any in here, but I did collect a few pieces of sheet moss with reindeer moss on it, and reindeer moss is white and kind of crispy. And then I collected some of this cushion moss, and you'll see that on rocks, but it is in a cushion shape, a very round shape, cushion like structure. And I'll talk more about what I did with those more decorative type mosses when we get to that part of the video. But for now, what we're going to do is use the sphagnum moss, and I'm going to refresh this mounted orchid. So this orchid is mounted on a piece of cork bark, and wrapped around the roots of it is old sphagnum moss, and this doesn't hold moisture very well anymore, and it just isn't very pretty. So we're going to cut off all of the it's attached with fishing line, so we're going to cut all that off and clean it all this off of this orchid, and then I will come back to the video and show you how I'm putting it back on. So that's the intro / what we're doing right now. So I will be back when I get this off. So I hope this is close enough to see what I'm doing, to hear what I'm doing. Okay, sorry. I hope this is close enough to see what I'm doing and to hear what I'm saying. And we're gonna, so we've got it off of the cork bark. I just sprayed this. Now I will warn you that this moss, this live moss, contains fungus gnats, and it can contain little critters. So that's why I always like to harvest it when it's still cold out. That usually prevents a lot of the critters. The fungus gnats are a thing that you can combat with adding mosquito bits to it, which I don't have any right now, but when I do, I will just tuck a little chunk of mosquito bit in there. So we got the orchid. So here's the orchid. I've cut off the nasty roots. See, these big white chunky ones are great. And the green ones are the ones that you want. And then little flimsy guys that break too easy, we don't want those. We're going to cut it off. I've attached fishing line to the back. And so this orchid was growing sort of upside down like this, which is okay. They're fine like that, but I would like to get it to grow upright, and we have a fresh spike here that is a root spike, not a flower spike. So I want to turn it. It hangs this way because the little hanger is here. I'm going to turn it this way, and then we're going to attach it to the board that way. And we're going to use this sphagnum moss. Now you need some that isn't quite, I'll pick out the stuff that isn't really the prettiest. You want to have some under where you're going to place the orchid. Try to pick out like the sticks and things and cover it up on here. And grab some that has some dirt in it. Again, you want the stuff that isn't the pretty stuff. So because that's going to be hidden by your pretty stuff, your nice looking stuff. It's something for your roots to go in, and it keeps the roots moist. So I'm just laying that like that, trying to sort of manipulate these roots in there. Then I'm going to take this nice flat bunch and we're going to put it over top of all of it. Now some of the roots are still sticking out, and that's fine. And then you're just going to take your fishing twine and wrap it around. Then I have a crafter stapler. I want to pull it kind of tight. It'll loosen up over time. And then you put your crafter's stapler there, staple it in place, and you can go around the back. That just makes it a little bit more secure. We're going to keep wrapping it around and stapling it, getting it held into place. I know fishing line isn't the best for the environment, and I do encourage you, if you are doing this and then you take it apart, you know, don't just chuck your fishing line out in with the old moss. Like, I put my old moss in the compost, but I make sure that I am not putting that fishing line in there, because it is plastic. I'm just trying to find, I'm gonna staple up here a way to keep this secure and like wrap it all around. Mounting orchids is something that is done a lot in Asian collections. They really make their collections look spectacular, and you'll see like mounted orchids and mounted staghorn ferns, anything that is terrestrial, or what is it called? Anything that grows in the trees, on rocks, things like that. You'll see them, they'll mount it either on a little tiny board or a bigger board. They have all kinds of genius ways of doing it. They also will make a ball out of the plant and the moss and just wrap the fishing line around the ball of plant, and that either sits in a saucer or hangs up from the ceiling sometimes. It's really pretty amazing, their style. I like it because this is just a grocery store orchid, but it just makes it a little bit extra pretty, a little bit more interesting. And if I can remember to water it on time, not just the orchid, but the moss will grow at the same time. And it just makes it a little bit nicer, a little bit more interesting than just your average grocery store orchid. So that's what we are doing with some of the sphagnum moss, and I'll show you in a minute what else I do with it. So there, it's pretty easy. And then this just hangs up. You'll see the wooden cupboard under my sign in the kitchen. You'll see it hanging on there. And hopefully we'll get a flower spike out of it with some refreshed moss. We'll see, I guess. But yeah, that's what we do with those. I'm just gonna get my stuff out of the way here, and then I'll show you what else I do with the sphagnum moss, and why I collected so much. So another thing that you'll see houseplant collectors have are plants on moss poles. So this is a plastic tube with the front, you can see there has openings. You fill it full of moss, and plants that are climbers that are that like to climb on trees or things like that in the wild. You put them on a moss pole, and their little roots go in, and they grow into that moss. You keep it damp, and it makes the plant happier. It grows bigger leaves, and it grows a more robust plant. It also makes it easier if you want to propagate it. So the roots are always there. You just cut it, and it's all ready to plant in the soil because it already has its roots. So moss poles are another thing I use my sphagnum moss for. And this is a propagation box. In here I have Hoya propagations. And you just cut your pieces of orchid, Hoyas, or whatever you want to propagate. You just cut it, and you are sticking your little propagations into the moss, and those propagations grow roots on them. Let me see if I can find one with roots. And then once they have roots, then you can plant them into the soil. This one is still not getting roots yet. It's quite crowded in here, so I might take them and divide them up into several boxes. Let's see what's really not. This was a Hoya that I have that was really struggling, and sometimes they just need to have a refresh. So you just cut cuttings of them and you repropagate it, restart it. That's why I like Hoyas as much as I do, because they're very easy to grow, really. When you can just cut a piece of something and it just roots so easy. It's just it's kind of a foolproof thing. So yeah, these are just clear plastic shoe boxes that come from the Dollarama. Put the moss in there, and it is moist, and then it gets put under the grow light, and it takes a little bit of that environment, that moist environment of the moss, and then you usually will get roots on there. And once you have enough roots, then you can plant it in the soil. So that's another thing that I use the sphagnum moss for. And like I say, the number one thing that you can root in the sphagnum moss are Hoyas or philodendrons, because as you can see, like the philodendron enjoys to be near that moss. It'll put out roots really easily. And Hoyas are epiphytic, most of them, and so you put them into the moss and they will put out roots very easily. They take a little bit of light and a little bit of heat, and away you go. So I have this particular Hoya is a rotundiflora, and like I say, it was struggling. So to make sure my plant didn't totally die, I cut the main root base off, and we're going to restart that Hoya. I have some other propagations of ones that I'm going to be selling, and so I put them into the sphagnum moss and get them rooted. Then I pot them up into little pots, and away you go. So sphagnum moss for propagations and propagation boxes. These are called prop boxes by planty people. And that's another way we use sphagnum moss. I also had a vision for a revamp of my Christmas or my holiday star that I put on my door. I wanted to have live moss on it. So the other thing I do is just some little decorative projects with moss. So let me show you that. So there you have it. And in order to keep it alive, just take it and spray it down. And there's an example of the reindeer moss that I was telling you about. Some of the blanket moss and some of the cushion moss. and some lichen for more decoration. It just hangs on my door. It's I don't know how many days later, and I'm finishing my moss video off with the biggest task of all, and that is my carboy terrarium. So I think I put this together about a year ago, and we used a glass cutter to cut this carboy, and it didn't really cut the best. It didn't cut straight at all, and it broke in a couple of places, but it worked for good enough until we could try again. And inside is a cow skull that my sister collected from a neighbor who butchers cattle, and it has a little mushroom that my friend Diane makes, these little mushrooms with stained glass. It has some crawling things and a philodendron brandiatum, as well as a fern and lots of moss that I collected. So I'm going to redo this and try not to destroy this part, because this part's actually growing. I might take this off, but there are some ferns in here and some other things growing that I want to keep, but I wanted to take that out, and I have a better carboy to use. So I'm gonna get that one and bring this one cut much better. And I just put hot glue around the edge to keep it from grinding together, and it will make a nice seal, even though we had to glue this piece back on. It'll still work well. So I'm going to make a plan on how to put this in this so that it shows up better. I also have some new moss and a couple of other plants I want to try in this, because be able to see them better. I just was testing to see how this is going to fit in here. I love how it's getting all mossy and scary looking. I want to make sure I can tuck this in here once I'm done. But now I have to put some soil in the bottom here. I'm going to use my chunky aeroid mix here. It's just got a lot better it's got a lot better texture in it than my smooth soil. I have my moss in here, and I have a couple of other plants that I want to put in. So let's see. Yeah, there we go. So got clippers on my messy table, so I'm going to just take that because I'm going to save that and stick it in another spot. So I really like making terrariums because they feel like secret worlds, and I can kind of lose myself in them for a while, just looking at them and thinking about the way things grow in them. And what secret world might be hiding in there. So this is live moss, and it'll probably grow, and it might grow some strange things that we don't even know what they are. So I'm going to tuck some of that down here. I've got some nice star moss to tuck in there. I have other terrariums, and I'm not sure if I have shown them to you guys before in this video. I'm going to review and check that out and see. And you can see how this has been growing even in this bucket. As soon as the sun gets on it, it grows. There's little plants growing in here. I don't know what this is, but we're going to plant it in there, and some of this lichen we'll put in. So I want to just tuck this moss in here. And the moss in the previous one didn't grow very well because it just didn't get enough light through the way that the glass is. So get some cool different kinds here. I'm gonna stick in there. Now, yeah, that's lichen I want to put in. And got this. I wanted to tuck in here. So that's one of the other things I do with all the moss that I collect. And then I like to keep it, like I say, for my moss poles and for my bonsai trees as well. I have several bonsai trees that I like to use the moss with. Let's have a look, because there are some really nice ferns in here, and I think it's a clover species in here that I'd like to get growing. Let me move this so you can see. This little guy, I don't know what that is, but we're going to put it in. You can see it. There we go. Put that right there. Now I have two philodendron chunks that aren't doing well in a pot. This one is like Fabra, I don't know, whatever. It's a philodendron that I picked up. So we're gonna put it in here and mostly put it into the moss. It doesn't seem to be doing well any other way, so see if we can get that growing. That's that one. And I have this one. I think these grow rather large, but it's going to be a long time before they actually grow rather large. So I'm not really worried about it. Just tucking it in here. think I'll keep them on this side so that I can have one steady place to point the grow light on. Sorry, I hope the microphone isn't like clanging. I didn't realize I was leaning over here so much. All right, so what else do we have in here? I think that's about it. Oh, there's a tiny little fern frond in here. Oh, I think it's just a leaf. Well, that's a bummer. I do have some of the moss is still growing in here. I think we'll just leave that. Let's put this kind in. In there. All right, now I just want to go and check around and see if I have any other plants I want to tuck in here. Just tucking this moss in around here. Oh, alrighty. So I have this huge pitcher plant here, and it has a little puppy on there. So I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to stick it directly in the top here, and then hopefully it will grow these pitchers. You can see how they dangle down. You don't really need to have, oh, that's too bad. I had to cut off one of the pictures. You don't really need to root anything before you put it in. You can just put it in and it will grow. Oh, that's going to look very cool. Let's try the top and see. The good thing about having it break was that you can tell which way to assemble it. At least kind of like when you carve a pumpkin and you put a little notch so you know which way the top goes on. I think that's going to be great. And I really like the look of it already. You can see the cattle teeth and everything. I'm going to bring you down for a closer look, and I'll show you some of my other terrariums. And of course, we're making a mess. Why not? All right, I turned it around and turned you around, so there we go. So there you can see the cow skull really well, and all of the moss and the little plants that are going to grow out of it. I forget what this plant is called, but I have a few pieces of that in there. It's really pretty. And yeah, you can see all the moss and the philodendrons. And so this is the way that it's going to face so that the grow light shines on it. You don't have to put a top on there. I think it's going to hold enough moisture as it is. So that's where I like to keep, excuse me, that's where I like to keep that terrarium. I think it looks really sharp there. It's going to get just enough light from the window and from the grow lights in my cabinet. You don't want too much light or it's like putting things in the oven. Nobody wants that for their plants. So this is just the shelf that's over my stairs to go upstairs, and I have two terrariums there. I have that one. I haven't ever opened that one. And I have this one, which is open but growing really well. It's just really cool to grow them. All right, so I have this little glass terrarium here and this special rock. So I just put some of the live moss in there and tucked it in. And close the lid. And I'm gonna do a contest for this on my Instagram. So you'll see the details on Instagram, but I'll also leave them in the description of this video on how you can win this. And you can have your own little terrarium with some of the moss I gathered. So that's it. That's my moss video. Sorry about that. I hope that explains a bit about what I do with all this moss. And I just find moss really fascinating. To me, it's like a hidden little world. If you've ever seen some of the close-up photography of moss, it really taps into my imagination of what is really going on in that tiny little world. The tall moss in the pictures reminds me of tall trees, and I imagine what what creatures would be living in those. So that's my moss video, and I thank you for waiting this long for it to come to fruition. And I thank you for requesting it because I like to geek out about that kind of stuff. And yeah, thanks. Don't forget, if you want any other videos on anything else that you see me doing and you're interested, just let me know.